Quiet Science Journeys. These videos are designed to let your mind drift through calm cosmic stories, whether you stay awake listening or slowly fall asleep. Tonight, the sky is quiet. Not empty, just quiet in the way it becomes when most lights are off and only a few bright points remain. Above that silence, one light stands out more than the others. It does not flicker, it does not rush. It holds its place with a steady glow. That light is Jupiter. On nights like this, Jupiter feels closer, not because it has moved toward Earth in any dramatic way, but because the geometry of the solar system has become briefly simple. The orbits line up in a way that favors our view. From the ground, the planet appears brighter, larger, and present for longer hours of the night. This is what people often call Jupiter coming close or Jupiter approaching Earth. In reality, nothing is approaching. The distance between worlds is still vectors, measured in hundreds of millions of kilometers. What changes is not the space between them, but the angle from which we look. Earth is moving along its own path, quietly circling the sun. Jupiter is doing the same far beyond us, slow and massive, taking nearly 12 years to complete a single orbit. Once each year, Earth passes between the Sun and Jupiter. When that happens, Jupiter rises as the Sun sets and stays visible through the night. The planet does not hurry. It climbs slowly into the dark reaches its highest point, and then descends just as calmly toward morning. There is time to notice it, time to look away and look back again and find it still there. This steadiness is part of what makes Jupiter easy to watch. Stars shimmer and pulse as the air above us shifts. Jupiter does not. Its light feels heavier, more anchored as if it belongs where it is. On nights like this, people have been looking up for thousands of years. Long before telescopes, before charts and names, Jupiter was already there, marking the sky with a brightness that set it apart. It wandered slowly against the background of fixed stars, earning its place among the planets, the wanderers. Tonight is not unique. Nights like this have happened before and will happen again. But each time, the experience is slightly different, shaped by where we are standing and by what we already know. From the surface of Earth, the sky feels close. The moon shows its texture clearly. Stars feel distant and small. Jupiter sits somewhere between those impressions, large enough to feel substantial, yet distant enough to feel unreachable. That balance makes it a quiet anchor for the night. When Jupiter is well placed, the sky seems more organized. The planet gives the darkness a reference point. It rises, it moves, it sets, and in doing so, it traces time itself. There is no urgency in this motion. Nothing needs to be understood all at once. The story of Jupiter unfolds slowly, just as the planet moves slowly, carrying its history with it. Because Jupiter is not just a bright point. It is a world with depth, with layers, with companions moving around it in patient rhythms. But none of that needs to be held in mind yet. For now, it is enough to know where to look. Somewhere above the horizon, Jupiter is waiting. Not waiting in a human sense, but existing exactly where its orbit places it, exactly when Earth turns to face it. This alignment does something subtle. It lowers the barrier between curiosity and observation. The planet does not demand effort. It simply appears. On nights like this, Jupiter becomes an invitation. Not an invitation to study or analyze, but an invitation to notice. To let the sky be larger than daily concerns and slower than daily thoughts. As Earth continues its rotation, the stars drift westward, one by one. Jupiter drifts with them, but at its own pace, carrying with it centuries of attention, from early skywatchers to modern spacecraft. The same light that reaches your eyes tonight has crossed the space between worlds unchanged by the passage of time. It does not carry urgency or warning. It only carries presence. This moment when Jupiter is easiest to see is not about proximity. It is about perspective, about standing in the right place at the right time to notice something that is always there. As the night continues, Jupiter will keep its slow watch. It will rise higher, then lower, unbothered by whether anyone is paying attention. The sky does not require an audience. And yet here we are. With Jupiter above us, the night feels a little deeper, a little more structured, a little more spacious. From this quiet alignment, a long story begins. Jupiter rises slowly, not all at once, not dramatically, but in the patient way planets always do. At first, it appears low, close to the horizon, softened by the thickness of the air. Its light feels warmer there, slightly dulled as if it is still passing through the day it has just left behind. As the night deepens, Jupiter climbs. The air above it becomes thinner. Its glow sharpens, steadies, and separates itself from the rest of the sky. This is one of the quiet advantages of these nights. Jupiter does not hurry across the darkness. It stays visible for hours, moving so slowly that its position feels almost fixed. You can notice it walk away, return later, and find it still holding the same general place. For many people, this is the first time Jupiter feels easy to see. Not because it suddenly became brighter than it has ever been, but because the timing is gentle. It rises early enough. It stays late enough. It does not ask for precision. This is what it means in a simple way for Jupiter to be well placed in the sky. The planet is not closer in any meaningful physical sense. The space between Earth and Jupiter remains vast, far beyond anything the mind can comfortably picture. What changes is the arrangement. Earth continues its steady path around the Sun. Jupiter continues its much larger, slower orbit farther out. Once each year, Earth passes between the Sun and Jupiter, and the geometry briefly favors observation. From the ground, this alignment has a quiet effect. Jupiter rises as the sun sets. It crosses the sky through the middle of the night. And it does not disappear until morning light begins to return. The sky feels more open when this happens. There is less urgency to catch a moment, less pressure to look at exactly the right time. Jupiter offers itself gradually. On these nights, the planet becomes a reference point. Stars shimmer as the atmosphere bends their light. Jupiter does not shimmer in the same way. Its light feels denser, more anchored, as if it belongs to a different category altogether. This steadiness is not subtle once you notice it. The longer you look, the clearer the contrast becomes. The stars twinkle. Jupiter holds. That difference has been noticed for as long as humans have watched the sky. Long before anyone knew what Jupiter was made of or how far away it truly is, people could tell that it behaved differently. It wandered slowly against the background of stars, keeping its brightness, keeping its calm. Even now, with all our measurements and images, that original experience remains the same. Jupiter does not need explanation to be recognizable. As the planet climbs higher, it becomes easier on the eyes. The atmosphere interferes less. Details, if you are using optics, come into better focus. But even without instruments, the impression changes. Higher in the sky, Jupiter feels more present, less filtered, more direct. This is not something that requires effort to notice. It happens naturally as the night progresses. The sky itself does the work. There is a rhythm to these hours. Jupiter rises, the sky darkens, the background stars settle into view. Nothing interrupts this process. No alarms, no sudden shifts. This rhythm is part of what makes Jupiter such a stable companion for the night. It does not demand attention. It rewards patience instead. You do not need to track its exact position. You do not need to remember names or distances. It is enough to know that it will remain visible, tracing a slow arc from east to west. As Earth turns, the sky appears to move. Stars drift westward, carried by the rotation beneath your feet. Jupiter drifts with them, but with a subtle independence, its motion shaped by both Earth's spin and its own distant orbit. That layered movement gives the sky depth. It reminds you quietly that not everything above is moving together. On nights when Jupiter is well placed, time feels stretched. Hours pass without the sense that something has been missed. There is room to look without purpose. This is how the planet has been experienced for centuries, as a marker of seasons, as a reliable presence that returns year after year, slightly shifted, slightly changed, but always familiar. Jupiter does not announce its history. It carries it silently. As the night continues, the planet reaches its highest point. Here it feels most stable, most grounded in the sky. If you are watching closely, you may notice faint points nearby. They appear and disappear depending on the night, depending on where they are in their own paths. Sometimes there are four, sometimes fewer. They move quickly compared to Jupiter itself, rearranging their positions from night to night. But Jupiter remains central, unchanged in its role. Even without knowing what those points are, their motion adds a subtle sense of activity, a hint that this is not a single object, but part of something larger. Still, nothing rushes. The system keeps its calm. As the hours pass, Jupiter begins its slow descent toward the western horizon. The air thickens again. Its light softens, becoming slightly less sharp. This too happens without urgency. There is no moment when Jupiter suddenly leaves. It simply sinks gradually until the planet is lost to the brightness of approaching day. By then, the night has already done its work. You may not remember exactly when Jupiter rose or when it reached its peak. You may not remember how long you watched, and that is fine. These nights are not meant to be measured. They are meant to be inhabited. Jupiter's presence on the night sky is not a message or a lesson. It is a condition, a quiet arrangement of orbits that makes a distant world easy to notice. And while Jupiter remains where it is far beyond Earth, the simple act of seeing it becomes easier. That is what these nights offer. Not closeness, but clarity. Not urgency, but time. Above the turning Earth, Jupiter continues its slow watch, holding steady as the night moves around it. The night is colder than expected. The air settles after sunset, and the sky grows clear in a way that feels rare. There is no sense that anything unusual is about to happen. Only a familiar darkness and a bright planet rising into it. Jupiter is already known on nights like this. It has been watched for generations, marked for its brightness and its slow wandering among the stars. Nothing about it suggests surprise. Someone lifts a simple telescope. Not a polished instrument by modern standards, but enough to gather light and narrow the view. Enough to turn a bright point into something slightly wider, slightly more complex. At first, Jupiter looks as expected, a small disk, soft around the edges, still and steady. But nearby something else appears. Tiny points of light sit close to the planet. They are faint, easy to miss if the eye drifts. They do not form a pattern that feels intentional. They simply are there. At a glance, they could be dismissed as background stars. The sky is full of them, after all. But there is a quiet hesitation before doing so. The telescope is lowered. The eye adjusts to the darkness again. Then the instrument is raised once more, carefully aligned. The points are still there. They sit on one side of Jupiter, close enough to feel connected, but not touching. They do not shimmer like stars near the horizon. They hold their light. There is no rush to understand this. Only a decision to look again later. The night passes. Hours later, Jupiter has shifted slightly westward, carried by the turning Earth. The background stars have moved with it, maintaining their familiar patterns. But the small points near Jupiter are no longer arranged the same way. Some have changed sides, some have spread out. Their positions relative to the planet are different. This is subtle. Nothing dramatic announces itself, but it is enough to raise a quiet question, even if no words are yet formed. The following night, the sky returns. Jupiter rises again. The telescope is lifted again. The same small points appear, but not where they were before. They have moved, not drifting slowly like Jupiter itself, not fixed like the stars, but shifting back and forth, night after night, always staying close to the planet. At this moment, there is no need to argue with the sky, No need to construct explanations. The motion alone is enough. Something is circling Jupiter. This realization does not arrive with force. It arrives gently, almost reluctantly. The mind resists large changes when small ones seem sufficient. Perhaps these are stars. Perhaps the telescope distorts the view. Perhaps the observer is mistaken, so the watching continues. Night after night, the same pattern repeats. Jupiter holds its slow course. The small lights rearrange themselves around it. Sometimes they line up neatly. Sometimes they cluster. Sometimes one disappears entirely lost against the planet's glow only to return later. There is rhythm here, a quiet predictability. No sound accompanies this discovery. No sudden shift in the night air, only the patient movement of light against darkness. What matters is not how fast the realization comes, but that it does not go away. If these points were stars, they would remain fixed relative to one another. If they were illusions, they would not behave so consistently. Their loyalty is not to the sky as a whole, but to Jupiter. Without making any declaration, the sky has offered a new arrangement. Jupiter is no longer alone. It is not just a wandering light against the stars. It is the center of a small system, with companions tracing paths around it. Nothing about Jupiter's appearance changes. It does not grow brighter. It does not signal importance. The change happens entirely in understanding, and even that happens slowly. For centuries, the sky has been imagined as orderly, in a particular way. The Earth at rest, everything else arranged around it. But here is a quiet contradiction, written not in words, but in motion. Small bodies moving around something that is not Earth. The sky does not announce this shift. It does not insist. It simply continues behaving as it always has. Jupiter rises. The small lights follow their paths. Night returns again. What makes this moment powerful is not confrontation, but repetition. The sky repeats itself until the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. There is no single night when everything changes. There is only accumulation, light observed, motion noticed, expectation adjusted. Jupiter, once a single point, now feels layered. It has depth. It has relationship. Even without names, without numbers, without theory, the feeling settles in. This planet is not merely passing through the sky. It is hosting motion. The night sky grows larger because of this. Not brighter, not more crowded, but deeper. The idea that everything circles Earth quietly loosens its grip. Not because it is challenged directly, but because something else is seen clearly. 4 small points of light continue their silent dance. They move quickly compared to Jupiter. Their cycles are short enough to be noticed within days. Jupiter, by contrast, remains slow and heavy. It anchors their motion without effort. This contrast makes the system feel real, balanced, stable. The telescope is set down. The night continues. From this point on, Jupiter is never quite the same. It still shines with the same brightness. It still follows the same slow path through the stars. But it now carries companions whether the eye can see them or not. Every future observation of Jupiter will include this knowledge, even if it remains unspoken. The planet has become a place, not just a point, and the sky has quietly changed shape. Not because something new was created that night, but because something that had always been there was finally noticed. Above the turning Earth, Jupiter continues its steady motion. Its small companions continue theirs. The night holds all of this without comment. And long after the telescope is packed away, the sky remains exactly as it was moving patiently, waiting to be looked at again. As nights pass, Jupiter begins to feel less like a point of light and more like a presence with shape. At first, the change is subtle. The planet is still bright, still steady, still slow. But when it climbs higher in the sky, something else becomes noticeable. Its light is not uniform. Through careful watching, Jupiter reveals variation. Faint bands stretch across its surface, running parallel to one another. They are not sharp at the edges, but they persist, night after night, holding their positions as the planet turns. These bands do not rush. They slide slowly, carried by motion that belongs to Jupiter itself. The impression is quiet but unmistakable. This is not a smooth sphere. This is something layered. Jupiter is made mostly of gas, yet it behaves as if it has structure. Its atmosphere arranges itself into broad stripes, each one tracing a different path around the planet. Some move slightly faster, some slightly slower. The effect is not chaos, it is order expressed gently. As the planet rotates, these bands drift in and out of view. They wrap fully around Jupiter, forming continuous rings of motion. What you see at any given moment is only a portion of a much larger pattern. The longer you observe, the more this pattern settles into memory. Jupiter begins to feel less distant, not because it is physically closer, but because it behaves in a way that feels consistent. Consistency builds familiarity. Within these bands, darker shapes sometimes appear. They do not flash or change abruptly. They linger. One of these shapes is larger than the rest. It has been seen for generations, holding its place as the planet turns beneath it. It drifts slowly, changing latitude, slowly, reshaping itself, but never quite disappearing. It is a storm larger than Earth moving through Jupiter's upper atmosphere. There is no need to dwell on its scale. What matters is its patience. Storms on Earth come and go within days. Jupiter's storms last for years, decades longer than human attention usually allows. This difference changes how time feels when watching the planet. Jupiter teaches a slower clock. The atmosphere does not mix freely from pole to pole. Instead, motion is guided into lanes, each one following its own rhythm. The result is a surface that feels organized, even restrained. Nothing spills wildly into anything else. Boundaries hold. The planet turns quickly beneath these layers. A full rotation takes less than half a day. Yet the bands remain coherent, carried along without dissolving. This combination of speed and stability is part of what gives Jupiter its distinct character. Fast motion, contained within long-lived structure. Watching this unfold does not require effort. It becomes apparent simply by returning night after night. Some nights the bands appear softer. Other nights, they are clearer, more defined. This is not because Jupiter has changed, but because the air above Earth has. When the atmosphere here is calm, Jupiter's structure becomes easier to see. When it is restless, details blur. This shifting clarity adds another layer to the experience. The view depends not only on the planet, but on the space between it and the observer. Even so, the underlying pattern remains. Jupiter holds its form. The planet does not present sharp edges. Everything is rounded, blended, softened by depth. Light passes through layers before reaching the eye. This depth is what gives Jupiter its sense of volume. And it does not look painted onto the sky. It looks inhabited by motion. Over time, the idea of Jupiter as a simple gas giant begins to fade. Gas suggests formlessness. But Jupiter shows boundaries, repetition, and persistence. Its atmosphere behaves less like smoke and more like a system. This system is not static. Bands widen and narrow, colors shift slightly, storms drift. Yet the overall structure remains recognizable. Jupiter becomes predictable in a comforting way. It does not surprise, it reassures. The planet's rotation carries its features across the visible disk. What is seen on one night will return on another given enough time. Nothing is lost abruptly. This sense of return adds to the calm of observation. There is always another chance to look again. As the night deepens, Jupiter reaches its highest point. Here the view is at its clearest. The planet appears steadier, less affected by Earth's atmosphere. At this height, its structure feels most apparent. Bands align cleanly. Shadows soften. Motion slows in perception. The planet feels balanced. Jupiter does not ask to be interpreted. It does not explain itself. It simply continues behaving in the same way, trusting that attention will do the rest. Over long periods of watching something subtle happens, the mind stops treating Jupiter as a distant object and starts treating it as a place with weather, a place with cycles, a place with memory. This shift does not come from learning facts. It comes from exposure. By seeing Jupiter behave consistently, night after night, its structure becomes familiar. The planet no longer feels abstract. It becomes part of the sky's architecture. Above the turning Earth, Jupiter carries its bands, its storms, its layered motion. They remain in place even when unseen, continuing their slow work. The night sky feels more grounded knowing this, less empty, more inhabited. Jupiter does not dominate the sky. It supports it. As the hours pass, the planet begins its gradual descent. Its structure softens again as it approaches the horizon. Details fade gently. Nothing feels lost. The planet has shown enough. By the time Jupiter sinks into the thickening air, the impression remains. Not of a featureless giant, but of a world with form, rhythm, and restraint. A distant atmosphere arranged and enduring, turning quietly in the dark. And above it all, the night continues holding Jupiter exactly as it is structured, steady, and unhurried. Near Jupiter, the calm does not mean stillness. If you look closely, small points of light appear beside the planet. They are faint compared to Jupiter itself, easy to overlook at first. But once noticed, they change the feeling of the scene. These points do not stay fixed. From night to night, they rearrange themselves. Sometimes they line up neatly. Sometimes they spread apart. Sometimes one slips too close to Jupiter's glare and vanishes for a while. Their motion is quiet but persistent. Jupiter remains steady at the center, while these smaller lights move around it with purpose. They do not drift randomly. They return. They repeat. This is the first sign that Jupiter is not alone. These are moons, worlds in their own right, bound to Jupiter by gravity and rhythm. They circle quickly compared to the planet's slow passage through the stars. Their paths are short enough to be traced across a few nights of watching. Even without knowing their names, their behavior is unmistakable. They belong to Jupiter. At first glance, this motion feels gentle. Small lights sliding back and forth. A quiet dance around a much larger body. But this calm surface hides something else. One of these moons is restless. It looks no different at a distance. Just another small point of light. But its surface is active in a way that feels out of place in the cold outer solar system. This moon is Io. Io does not settle. Its surface is constantly reshaped. Volcanoes erupt. Material rises and falls. Landscapes change without waiting for ages to pass. This activity does not come from warmth provided by the sun. Io is too far away for that. Instead, the energy comes from motion itself. Io is pulled. Jupiter's gravity grips it tightly. Nearby moons tug at it as well, stretching its orbit slightly, then releasing it again and again. The moon is gently flexed, over and over, in a slow but relentless rhythm. This repeated motion keeps Io warm inside. Not warm in a comforting sense, but active, unsettled. The surface responds by breaking open. Volcanoes rise where pressure builds. Plumes lift material into space, only for it to fall back again. Nothing stays finished for long. Io is a moon that cannot rest. This restlessness does not remain contained. Material escaping from Io spreads outward, forming a thin environment around Jupiter itself. Charged particles move along invisible paths, shaped by the planet's magnetic field. Jupiter's space is not empty, it is filled with motion. Other moons move differently. Some appear quieter, smoother, covered in ice rather than fire. Their surfaces reflect light softly. They circle Jupiter at their own distances, keeping their own rhythms. Even from far away, their regular motion adds depth to the scene. Jupiter is no longer a single object. It is the center of an arrangement. Each moon follows a path shaped by gravity and time. Some move faster, some slower, but none are accidental. Together they form a system, This system is balanced but not fragile. It has endured for billions of years. Small changes occur, but the overall pattern remains. Jupiter's gravity holds everything together without strain. The planet does not pull violently, it pulls steadily. From Earth, this motion appears almost decorative. Points of light shifting positions night after night. But beneath that simplicity lies continuous interaction. Moons tug on one another. Orbits adjust slightly. Energy moves from motion into heat, from heat into change. Nothing here is static. Even the quieter moons are shaped by these forces. Their interiors respond slowly, subtly, to the same gravitational influences. Some may hold oceans beneath their surfaces, kept from freezing by gentle internal warmth. This idea does not need to be explored fully to be felt. It is enough to know that beneath the calm exterior movement continues. Jupiter presides over all of this without interruption. It turns. It holds its moons. It absorbs their motion into its larger rhythm. From a distance, Jupiter feels peaceful. Up close, it is dynamic. This contrast defines the system. Calm at the center, activity in the details. When watching from Earth, the experience remains gentle. The moons slide slowly, changing positions without urgency. The system reveals itself over time, not in a single glance. You might notice one moon on one side of Jupiter, then find it gone the next night. Later it returns, having completed part of its path. Nothing has been lost. Nothing has been disrupted. The sky does not announce these movements. It allows them to be discovered gradually. This gradual discovery is part of what makes Jupiter's moons feel alive. They are not static decorations. They are participants. Together, Jupiter and its moons create a sense of depth in the night sky. Not just distance, but relationship. The planet anchors the scene. The moons provide motion. Watching them even casually changes how Jupiter is perceived. It becomes more than a bright object. It becomes a place with activity, with internal processes, with ongoing change. Yet, none of this breaks the calm of the night. The movements are slow enough to feel soothing. The interactions are steady enough to feel reliable. Jupiter does not demand attention through drama. It reveals itself through persistence. Night after night, the same pattern returns with small variations. The moons rearrange themselves. The planet remains. This repetition builds familiarity. Familiarity builds trust. Over time, Jupiter's system becomes part of the background of the night, like a slow heartbeat, present, consistent, unhurried. Above the turning Earth, these moons continue their paths, pulled and released, heated and cooled, changing without ever leaving their courses. Jupiter holds them all not tightly, not loosely, but just enough. The night sky feels fuller, knowing this. Not more crowded, but more active. A calm system quietly alive, turning endlessly in the dark. For a long time, Jupiter feels untouched. Its bands return night after night. Its storms drift slowly, changing shape, but never breaking the overall calm. The planet seems large enough to absorb time without leaving marks. Then one season, something unusual appears. Dark shapes form within the familiar clouds. They are not part of the usual patterns. They do not stretch into bands or soften at the edges. They look like stains. At first, they are subtle, easy to mistake for shadows or temporary features. But as days pass, they remain. These marks sit where nothing has sat before. They interrupt the smooth flow of Jupiter's atmosphere. They do not belong to the rhythm that observers have grown used to. The sky has changed quietly. Jupiter has not altered its brightness. It has not shifted its path. But on its surface, something new has appeared. The marks grow clearer as Jupiter turns. They move with the planet carried along by rotation. They are not drifting independently. They are part of Jupiter now. What makes these marks different is not their darkness, but their origin. They are not storms forming from within the atmosphere. They are the result of something arriving from outside. A visitor crossed Jupiter's path. Far from Earth, a small body approached the giant planet. It did not arrive as a single piece. As it drew closer, Jupiter's gravity stretched it gently, at first, then more insistently. The visitor broke apart, not explosively, not suddenly, but into a line of fragments, each one continuing along the same path, separated but still connected by momentum. These fragments did not pass by. They fell. One by one, they entered Jupiter's atmosphere. Each impact released energy, not as sound, but as heat and motion. Material was driven downward, then pushed back up, forming dark scars in the clouds above. From Earth, the result was visible. For the first time, a collision between large bodies in the solar system was observed directly, not inferred, not reconstructed after the fact. Seen, the marks on Jupiter remained long enough to be followed as the planet rotated. They appeared, disappeared, then returned again as the planet turned. Each mark held its place relative to the others, tracing the path of the original fragments. Jupiter became a record. The atmosphere did not erase these scars immediately. They lingered, stretched, softened at the edges, but remained distinct. The planet carried the memory of the event in its clouds. This is what makes the moment feel different from other changes on Jupiter. Storms arise from within and blend back into the flow. These marks arrived from beyond and took time to fade. They reminded observers that the solar system is not static, that space is not empty and uneventful, that even massive worlds can be touched by passing objects. And yet Jupiter did not react with violence. There was no lasting disruption to its structure, no shift in its motion, no sign of damage beneath the surface. The planet absorbed the impacts and continued as before. This balance is part of Jupiter's character, large enough to register an event, stable enough to move on. As days passed, the scars slowly changed. Winds stretched them, edges blurred, contrast softened. Eventually, they faded into the background, becoming part of the general texture of the atmosphere. Jupiter returned to its familiar appearance, but the memory remained not on the planet, but with those who had watched. For the first time, Jupiter had shown itself as a surface that could be marked. Not permanently, not dramatically, but visibly. The sky felt more active because of it. Not more threatening, just more real. This event did not turn Jupiter into a place of danger. It did not suggest instability. Instead, it revealed resilience. Jupiter is large enough to encounter objects moving through the solar system. It is also large enough to endure those encounters without losing its balance. From a distance, the scars looked like simple dark spots. From a broader view, they represented motion on a much larger scale. Objects travel through space, paths cross, sometimes they meet. Jupiter, with its immense gravity, becomes part of that story, not as an exception, but as a participant. The scars on the clouds made this participation visible. They connected Jupiter's calm presence in the night sky to the deeper motion of the solar system itself. The planet was no longer just a world with weather and moons. It was also a surface where events could be recorded briefly before being smoothed away. This adds another layer to how Jupiter is experienced. It is not frozen in time. It is not isolated. It exists within a moving environment, shaped by encounters as well as internal rhythms. Even so, nothing about Jupiter's appearance became dramatic in a lasting way. The scars did not dominate the planet. They did not define it. They came, they stayed for a while, then they faded. The night sky absorbed the change as calmly as it had absorbed everything else. For observers on Earth, the experience was quiet but profound. To see marks appear on another planet is to realize that space is not distant in the way it once seemed. Events unfold there on human timescales, days and weeks, not only millions of years. And yet Jupiter remained steady. It continued to rise each night. It continued to turn. Its bands and storms resumed their familiar patterns. The scars became a memory rather than a feature. What remained was a deeper sense of connection. Jupiter was no longer only a distant world governed by abstract forces. It was a place where something had happened and left a trace. That trace did not disrupt the calm of the night sky. it enriched it. Knowing that Jupiter can carry such marks, even briefly, makes its presence feel more complete. Not fragile, not threatened, simply involved. Above the turning Earth, Jupiter continues its slow rotation, its atmosphere flowing as it always has. The clouds move, the storms persist, the scars are gone. But the sky remembers that they were once there, and Jupiter, unbothered, keeps watch holding its quiet place among the stars. Far beneath Jupiter's visible clouds, the planet continues. What can be seen from Earth is only the outermost layer. Band storms and color are surface expressions of something much deeper. Below them, Jupiter becomes quieter in appearance, but not simpler in nature. There is no clear boundary where the atmosphere ends and something solid begins. Instead, pressure increases gradually. Gas becomes denser. Motion slows, then reorganizes. Depth on Jupiter is not marked by edges, it is marked by change. For a long time, this interior remained mostly imagined. Observers could describe what happened on the surface, but beneath the clouds, Jupiter stayed hidden. Too deep, too opaque. Understanding this interior required a different kind of attention. A spacecraft approached Jupiter with a specific rhythm. Not a straight descent, not a sudden dive, but a careful looping path. It passed close to the planet, then moved away, again and again. This was Juno. Juno did not look beneath the clouds directly. It could not see through Jupiter's atmosphere. Instead, it listened. As the spacecraft passed over different regions, Jupiter's gravity tugged on it slightly. These changes were extremely small, barely noticeable, but consistent. By tracking them carefully, a picture began to form. Gravity is a quiet messenger. It reveals mass without revealing shape. It tells where matter is concentrated and where it spreads more gently. From these subtle signals, Jupiter's interior began to take form. The expectation had been simple. A dense core at the center surrounded by layers of gas arranged neatly around it. Clear divisions, clear structure. What emerged was softer. Instead of a sharply defined core, Jupiter appears to have a region where heavier material blends gradually into its surroundings. Not a single solid center, but an extended interior where composition changes slowly with depth. This does not mean disorder, it means continuity. Jupiter's interior seems to resist sharp boundaries. Materials mix under immense pressure. Elements that would separate on smaller worlds remain connected here. This blending gives the planet a different character, less like a layered object built piece by piece, more like a world that grew and settled into itself over time. The planet's immense gravity compresses everything inward. Hydrogen, the lightest element, behaves in unfamiliar ways under such pressure. It becomes denser. It conducts energy differently. It participates in motion that feels almost fluid, yet deeply constrained. Energy moves upward from the interior, but slowly. Heat left over from Jupiter's formation still escapes feeding motion in the atmosphere above. The planet shines faintly with its own internal warmth. This internal energy does not rush, it seeps. Because of this, Jupiter's atmosphere does not exist independently. It is tied to what lies below. Storms draw strength from depth. Bands reflect motion that begins far beneath what can be seen. The surface is not a skin, it is an expression. Juno's repeated passes refined this picture. Each orbit added clarity without forcing conclusions. The planet revealed itself in increments, never all at once. This gradual unfolding matches Jupiter's nature. Large, slow, reluctant to give up its secrets quickly. The deeper layers rotate differently than the visible clouds. Motion shifts with depth. Some regions move together. Others slide past one another with subtle differences. This layered motion suggests that Jupiter is not rigid inside. It flows, but it flows under rules set by pressure and gravity rather than temperature alone. Magnetic fields emerge from this interior motion. Jupiter's magnetic presence extends far into space, shaped by currents deep within the planet. These currents arise naturally from the way material moves under extreme conditions. Once again, there is no sharp line between cause and effect. Everything blends. The idea of a simple core surrounded by simple layers becomes less useful here. Jupiter prefers gradients, gradual transitions, smooth changes. This softness does not imply weakness. On the contrary, it reflects stability at a massive scale. Sharp boundaries crack, gradual ones endure. Jupiter has had billions of years to settle into this form. The planet is not in a hurry to change. Its interior carries memory in a different way than its clouds. Storms shift and fade, bands drift, but the deep structure persists, evolving only over immense spans of time. This depth gives Jupiter its weight, both literally and figuratively. The planet feels grounded, not because it is solid, but because it is continuous. From Earth, none of this is visible directly. The clouds still dominate the view. The bands still slide calmly across the disk. Yet knowing that such depth exists beneath them changes the experience of watching. The surface becomes a hint rather than the whole story. Jupiter is not hollow. It is not layered like a shell. It is filled, compressed, and active throughout. This fullness contributes to its calm appearance. The planet does not wobble or flicker. Its mass stabilizes it. The interior holds everything together. As Juno continued its work, the picture of Jupiter became less rigid and more organic. Not simpler, but more coherent. The planet is not built from separate pieces stacked together. It is a single system gradually changing from the center outward. This perspective shifts how Jupiter fits into the larger story of the solar system. It is not just a gas giant occupying space. It is a deep reservoir of motion and history. Its formation left traces that remain inside it. Its early growth shaped how material settled and mixed. Those choices are still present, encoded in gravity and flow. Jupiter carries its past inward rather than on its surface. And still, none of this disrupts the quiet of the night sky. The planet rises as it always has. It shines steadily. It moves slowly across the stars. Beneath the familiar clouds, layers press flow and turn unseen and unannounced. The depth remains invisible, but it matters. It matters because it connects the calm exterior to a powerful interior process. It matters because it shows that even the most serene sights can be supported by complex foundations. Jupiter does not display its interior. It does not need to. The clouds are enough to suggest that there is more below. As the night continues, the planet keeps its steady course. Its deep structure turns with it unchanged by whether it is observed or not. Above the turning Earth, Jupiter remains whole. Clouds above, depth below. A world layered, not by sharp divisions, but by quiet continuity, holding its form across time without effort. The night returns to what it has always been. The sky darkens gradually. Street sounds soften. Lights in nearby windows fade one by one. Above it all, Jupiter is still there. Nothing about the planet announces what it carries. There is no sign of its depth, its storms, its restless moons, or the slow motion beneath its clouds. From the ground, it is once again a bright, steady presence against the dark. This is how most encounters with Jupiter begin. You step outside or look up through a window and notice a light that feels different from the rest. It does not flicker, it does not hurry, it simply holds. With the naked eye, Jupiter appears clean and uncomplicated. A single point brighter than most stars, calm and consistent. It stays visible, long enough to feel familiar. You do not need to know its name to recognize it. You do not need to understand its motion to notice its steadiness. It distinguishes itself quietly. This simplicity is not a loss. It is an invitation. If you watch long enough, you may notice that Jupiter does not behave like the stars around it. Stars shimmer as the air shifts. Jupiter remains firm, as if its light carries more weight. This difference is subtle, but once noticed, it stays noticed. A normal night does not require more than this. You can let your eyes rest on Jupiter without expectation. There is no need to track its movement or measure its brightness. It is enough to let it be part of the sky. If you bring binoculars, the scene changes slightly. The single point begins to separate. Tiny companions appear nearby, arranged on either side of the planet. They are faint but steady. Sometimes there are four. Sometimes one or two are missing, hidden in Jupiter's glare or positioned beyond view. They come and go without announcement. These small lights do not need explanation to be interesting. Their quiet rearrangement from night to night is enough. You may notice that their positions change faster than the planet itself. They shift noticeably over hours and days. Jupiter, by contrast, remains central. This difference in pace adds depth to the scene. The sky no longer feels flat. With a small telescope, Jupiter reveals more, but it does so patiently. The planet becomes a disk rather than a point. Soft bands stretch across it, parallel and persistent. Sometimes they are faint, sometimes clearer. The view depends on the air above you as much as on the planet itself. On calm nights, details settle into focus. On restless nights, they blur and soften. Either way, Jupiter does not resist observation. It accepts whatever the night allows. There is no pressure to see everything, no moment that must be captured. The planet will look similar tomorrow and the night after that. This reliability is part of its comfort. A normal night with Jupiter does not demand attention. It offers presence instead. You might watch for a few minutes, then look away. When you return, Jupiter is still there, unchanged in its role. Time passes differently under such conditions. Hours slip by without marking themselves. The sky moves slowly enough that it feels stable. This stability has a quiet steadiness. Knowing what lies behind Jupiter's simple appearance does not complicate the view. It enriches it without demanding recall. You do not need to think about storms larger than Earth. You do not need to remember restless moons or deep interiors. Those things continue whether they are remembered or not. The planet does not depend on understanding. It rises, it crosses the sky, it sets. This cycle repeats with steady reliability. On a normal night, Jupiter becomes part of the background of thought. It does not interrupt. It accompanies. You may notice it again later. Lower in the sky, its light softened by thicker air. The planet begins its slow descent just as calmly as it rose. Nothing signals an ending. The night continues its quiet work. Sounds return in the distance. The sky lightens almost imperceptibly. Jupiter fades, last holding its place until morning light overtakes it. By then, the night has already passed through you. You may not remember when you first noticed the planet. You may not remember how long you watched, and that is enough. A normal night does not ask to be recorded. It asks only to be lived. Jupiter's role in such a night is simple. It provides a fixed point in a moving sky, a reminder of scale without urgency. The planet does not insist on meaning. It allows meaning to arrive on its own or not at all. When Jupiter is well placed, the night feels organized, not controlled but balanced. There is a sense that things are where they should be. This feeling does not require explanation. It settles naturally, like the dark itself. Above the turning Earth, Jupiter continues its steady motion. Its clouds turn, its moons move, its deep interior flows. None of this breaks the quiet. From the ground, it remains what it has always been on nights like this. A calm light, a slow presence. A companion to a normal night, holding its place in the sky while everything else moves around it. The night begins to thin. The sky is still dark, but it no longer feels endless. Somewhere beyond the horizon, morning is already forming. Above it all, Jupiter remains in place, unchanged in its calm. Nothing about the planet suggests conclusion. It does not signal an ending. It does not acknowledge that time has passed. Jupiter simply continues. Earlier, it rose slowly into view. Now it drifts just as slowly toward the edge of the sky. Its light softens as it sinks into thicker air, becoming warmer, less defined. The change is gentle enough to miss if you are not looking for it. This is how Jupiter leaves the night. Not abruptly, not with drama, just by letting the Earth turn. The planet has not come closer. It has not moved away. What changed was perspective, and that perspective is changing again. The alignment that made Jupiter easy to notice will pass. The geometry will shift. The night will return to its usual arrangement. But nothing that has been seen is undone. Jupiter remains what it is, a world with structure, with restless moons, with depth beneath its clouds. Those things do not disappear when the view becomes less favorable. They continue unseen, carried forward by the same motions that brought them into view. This is what makes moments like this quiet, rather than urgent. There is no need to hold on to details, no need to remember sequences or explanations. Jupiter does not require that kind of attention. It allows itself to be noticed, then fades back into the larger pattern of the sky. The story does not end because the planet sets. It simply becomes less visible from where you are standing. Somewhere else on Earth, Jupiter is rising again. The same light is reaching different eyes. The same motions are unfolding beneath different skies. The planet does not belong to one moment or one observer. It belongs to its orbit. This continuity is part of its calm. When Jupiter is bright and well placed, it invites curiosity without demanding it. When it is harder to see, it does not withdraw anything of importance. It remains complete either way. What changes is not Jupiter, but the ease with which it can be noticed. This ease is temporary, and that is part of its value. Not because it must be used, but because it can be appreciated. Standing beneath the night sky, it is enough to know that such alignments happen, that the solar system occasionally arranges itself in ways that make distant worlds feel accessible. Accessible not in distance, but in presence. Jupiter does not come closer in space. It comes closer in experience. And then quietly, it moves on. The night sky has always worked this way. Moments of clarity appear and pass. Patterns reveal themselves, then soften. Nothing is lost in this process. The sky does not keep score. Jupiter's steady presence is part of a larger rhythm that does not pause for attention. It continues whether it is watched or not. This can feel steady or simply neutral. Either response is enough. As the sky lightens, stars fade one by one. Jupiter holds a little longer, then finally blends into the brightening background. The planet does not vanish. It becomes hidden by daylight waiting for Earth to turn again. By then, the night will have done what it always does. It will have offered space, time, a sense of scale that does not need to be measured. Jupiter's role in this is modest. It does not explain the universe. It does not resolve questions. It simply exists, large and steady, reminding the night that some things move slowly enough to be noticed. When the sky returns to its ordinary appearance, the impression remains. A bright planet, a quiet alignment, a system turning without effort. These impressions do not need to be held tightly. They can fade naturally, just like the light itself. The story does not need a final thought. Above the turning Earth, Jupiter continues along its path. Its clouds move, its moons circle, its interior flows. None of this depends on being observed. The night sky remains open, ready for the next moment when attention happens to meet alignment again. Until then, Jupiter carries on steady and unhurried, holding its place among the stars.